She's led or organized several Wikimedia hackathons, taught several courses at UC Berkeley, and performed at Bay Area stand-up comedy venues. She earned an MS in Technology Management from Columbia University and a BA in Political Science from UC Berkeley. She presented at Foo Camp, several years of Open Source Bridge, and at Mind Camp Seattle, and she was the keynote speaker for Open Source Bridge 2012 and for PICC. This one's not on her website, but I think it's pretty cool. She hangs out in the LibTech Women IRC channel. Yeah. You can find her on Twitter as Brainwane, BRAINWANE. She pointed out that if it's spelled the other way, it's a cart full of brains. No. And she blogs at Cogito Ergo Sumana. Please welcome Sumana.
Thank you so much for having me. Is this sound all right? Yeah. All right, fantastic, great. You know, this community is so super thoughtful, and I have avidly read your blog posts and your thoughts for years. You set a high bar for insight and achievement in thinking about information, skill sharing, and service. So it's a real honor to be speaking to you this morning. Thank you so much for having me. I work for the Wikimedia Foundation in the engineering community management team, and I help people integrate with our API for Wikipedia, Wikidata, Wikivoyage, Wiktionary, and all our other sites. And that includes collaborations with GLAMs, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. Maybe some of you are on the GLAM mailing list. And it's really exciting to me that we at Wikimedia are finally moving towards a service-oriented architecture and away from the SCM, the spaghetti code model. But I won't really be talking too much about that here today. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm here for the whole conference, so please do come up to me if you want to talk about it. For a few years, I've helped run internship programs that bring new people into the community of practice that is open source. And I've done my share of mentorship. And I also want to talk with people about that this week, but not right now. And last year, I took a sabbatical, and I went to hacker school in the autumn in New York City to improve my programming skills. And I found that to be a tremendously educational and transformative experience. And I came back to Wikimedia, and I decided to stop being a manager and start working on coding and tech writing instead. And that's also something to talk about with me later. And we're hiring. I co-sponsored one of the scholarships, so I figure a little recruiting is fair. But today, this morning, I am following the steps of Jeremy Previst and Beth Sadler and Mark Matienzo, among others, in their previous Code4Lib presentations and writings about design and emotion. Now, you in this room are the experts on your pieces of software that you work on, and most of you already know if the user experience of that software is not what you want it to be. And I want to give you some thoughts and some examples from other communities, other products, other services, about what good and bad user experience can do, and then talk about why we technologists usually don't put enough investment into user experience and what we can do to fix that. And I will be posting these talk notes, including links to the Code4Lib wiki later today in the hypothetical world of internet. So you don't need to scramble to write down names and links and things like that. So we have this really big hurdle for most services and products we technologists make, and that is choosing to make the right things and make them usable. I remember hearing this phrase in the 90s, the last mile problem. Who did? I think I remember, yeah, a few people remember that. Telecommunications companies laid down a bunch of fiber to connect one hub to another, but often the actual houses and schools and shops and offices didn't get hooked up for months or years because it got finicky and expensive, or because companies weren't creative enough to do it well. And there are still people in North America and around the world who are dealing with this right now. We call this the last mile problem, and I feel like usability is like the last mile problem. We have to be creative. And I don't mean we should address it after we build other infrastructure, because of course we need to be thinking about design and usability right from the start when we decide what to build. But I mean that really usefully connecting with users is a hard problem of a different type than just building big pipes. And if we don't do it, we have a gap and we aren't actually delivering. And maybe another way of thinking about this is when we are building services for people, we often have a lot more practice seeing things from the computer's point of view or the data's point of view than from another person's point of view. And in tech, I think we understand how to build arteries better than we understand how to build capillaries. And personally, I think capillaries are more interesting than arteries. Maybe it's just a personal temperament, but or healthcare, or hotels. But for all those big systems, there are these little capillaries where people exchange information, or get healed, or get whatever they need, and when those capillaries aren't working right, then those people just don't get what they need. People any way to save and earn interest instead of paying interest. But Lisa J. Servon, an urban policy professor at the New School, worked in a write check for over 4 months, and she found that one reason people chose write check over a traditional bank was the user experience. It was the hospitality that people were getting. She wrote in The Atlantic, The glue at WriteCheck is the customer-teller relationship. I interviewed 50 WriteCheck customers after my stint as a teller, and when I asked them why they brought their business to WriteCheck instead of the major well-known bank 3 blocks away, they often told me stories about the things the WriteCheck tellers did for them. At WriteCheck, the tellers treated the customers as individuals and went the extra mile to assist them, perhaps in the same way that a neighborhood grocer might allow a trusted customer to run a monthly tab. On busy days, tellers regularly skipped lunch and coffee breaks in order to keep the wait times down. Ana Paula, our manager, often joined us at the window. The customer always came first and knew it. Professor Servan believes that to attract these depositors' banks, we need a better product fee and service structures that work for them, designed around their experience. Here's an example, maybe a little closer to you. The New York Public Library, which has been lending out ebooks for years, and New York City has a lot of people who ride the subway who have smartphones or dedicated ebook reading devices. I think we could expect that some people who are already buying ebooks would be interested in borrowing them for free. The ebook borrowing rates at NYPL are abysmal. For context, across the United States, as I understand it, for every 100 print books sold, somewhere between 30 to 80 ebooks get sold. This is from some rough numbers that some friends and I put together. I checked with some Code4Lib folks yesterday. I think the general ratio should ring true, that it's not going to be that much beyond, let's say, 3 to 1. So given that New York Public Library lent out about 250,000 print books every week last year, you might hope that New York Public Library would be lending out, let's say, in terms of ebooks a week, all right, maybe half that, maybe a little more or less than half that, 150,000, maybe lower than that, maybe 100,000. Let's say it's a 5-to-1 ratio, 50,000 books a week. But instead, the number's actually way lower than that. In 2013, New York Public Library lent out 19,000 ebooks a week. Instead of a 3-to-2, 3-to-1 ratio, it's more like a 13-to-1 ratio. That's just like, what? And the reason I know about this is that NYPL has this division, NYPL Labs. Anyone here from Labs? Hi, yes, people will be very curious to chat with you later because NYPL Labs has broken down the ebook borrowing experience and found it currently takes 18 separate steps for an NYPL user to borrow an ebook. I saw the diagram that was called 19 Steps of Hell. And so this spring, they're starting a 2-year project to take that down to 3 steps. That's their goal. And incidentally, my spouse is about to start a job working on that project, which is part of how, I heard him ranting about this. And I would predict this would raise ebook borrowing rates beyond this freaking 13-to-1 print to ebook ratio. All right, I'll speak a little from my experience at the Wikimedia Foundation, people behind Wikipedia. So our number one concern right now is gaining and retaining Wikipedia editors and contributors in general to Wikidata, Wikivoyage, and so on. If we want a world in which every single human being can freely share in the sum of all human knowledge, then we need diverse perspectives, editing and providing that knowledge. And we have found that sometimes little things in usability make a really big difference. Like, for a subsection of a Wikipedia article, the edit link used to be all the way at the right side of the screen. And it wasn't obvious what it was for. And in fact, some users thought it was the link to edit the previous section. So we moved that link to be right next to the subsection header, which is where it is now if you open up a Wikipedia article. And we got a much higher click-through rate. The rate more than doubled. It went up by 117%. And that higher volume of clicks led to 8.6% more edits as well, which is not nothing. And I don't know if you've ever edited Wikipedia, but we see the bounce-off effect of people hitting edit, seeing wiki text, the markup language that evolved with MediaWiki, and just hitting the back button. Generally, when newcomers see that, they worry that something's broken because when else would you see that kind of gibberish on a website? And so we have invested in making a WYSIWYG editor, the visual editor. And you can try it right now on English Wikipedia if you log in and turn on beta features in your preferences. Our hypothesis, which we're working to prove, is that if we make the user experience better, more people and more different kinds of people will edit. One last note about Wikipedia and usability. You don't have to register to read Wikipedia. It's just there. No paywall, no reg wall, and there are a lot of really great other open educational resources out there, the OERs, that have content that readers would find really useful, maybe just as useful as Wikipedia, except it's behind a registration wall. And that just massively reduces how many people are going to see it. If you're trying to fight with anybody in your institution about reg walls, maybe that'll help you. Okay, something a little different. Let's talk about healthcare a little. Now, I think healthcare in the US is kind of fractally broken. Like it's broken on the macro and the micro. You just zoom and you just find more and more kinds of breakage. But you don't have to agree with me on that. Let's just look at the kind of traditional general practitioner acquisition, booking, service, user experience. Usability is often pretty poor. You know, a lot of offices, doctors' offices aren't open at nights or on weekends. You have to call them during business hours to make an appointment. You have to book a whole appointment just to get a flu shot. There's a long wait once you're there. So in recent years, we've seen some new startups that are usability hacks, like ZocDoc, a website that lets you see doctors in your area who have open appointment slots this week, lets you filter out the ones who don't take your insurance, lets you book the appointment online, and minute clinics and other quick clinics at drugstores and embedded in big box stores are walk-in, low-cost ways to get quick diagnoses or shots. But this convenience does come at a cost. To the user, patients on ZocDoc are often just going to book with the next available doctor. People who use minute clinics are skipping a longer doctor visit, so these patients maybe won't get long-term preventive care and long-term relationships, and that might be something to consider. One comparison to your institutions I've heard in the library world is how ResearchGate and academia.edu are hacks that patrons use to self-serve to get their needs met, which is great, except they're routing around the kinds of deep and long-term research help your institutions could give them. Just something I heard. All right, final example. Let's talk about privacy tools, encryption. Pretty good privacy, PGP. Who here has heard of it? Who here uses it regularly? Right, yes, congratulations to y'all. We'll have a key signing later. All 5 of us. Look, PGP is basically the standard, the common standard for email encryption, but it's incredibly hard to wrap your head around. Encryption tech in general has terrible usability. I have multiple R's in terrible, but I hope to preserve when I put it on the wiki, so that's not a typo. Terrible usability, terrible customer support, terrible localization to different languages and locales, and thus abysmal adoption rates. And as a result, journalists and dissidents and activists generally don't use it, even when the stakes are really high. They're using instead Twitter and Facebook and email unencrypted, because those are just a lot easier to use. The Open Internet Tools Project, James Vasile, said last year in a keynote at Open Source Bridge that the privacy tech community would be better off spending the next year of our time, spending all of that time on user experience design, localization, and end-user customer support, rather than writing any new tools or features. So these examples, banking, lending, Wikipedia, healthcare, encryption, they show you how bad usability can really change what choices people make. We in the open source community, including Code4Lib, put a lot of energy into lowering barriers to entry, like licensing and cost. And those are visible barriers that stop people from getting information. But bad usability is a barrier to entry too. It's less visible, but it's just as real. Free access to education, free expression of political opinions, privacy from unwarranted surveillance, they are human rights. They're in the UN Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, and even if you don't want to go that far, they are social justice goals that I think we can all agree on here. And we're here in this room because we share a vision of less waste and more empowerment, getting knowledge into people's hands, but actually getting those benefits to our users. This new last mile problem requires that the users actually be able to use our software. And so in getting rid of user experience obstacles, we are working to achieve social justice goals and implement human rights. Okay, so it's so clear why we ought to make our products usable. I mean, who's arguing for bad usability, right? But why do we have this bottleneck then? Why do we have this barrier? It's not just that the problem's hard. We have had other hard problems in the tech world, from going from mainframe to web, distributed computing, localization, that we have done better on than usability. So why? Well, I can speak as a tech veteran, and this is where I start saying controversial things. I was kind of hoping you'd laugh at that. All right. Yeah, because this isn't just about coffee. Let's look at what it takes to do user experience work. You have to look at your service from the point of view of someone who knows a lot less than you and see where they're coming from. You have to imagine the reasons why they want what they want, and seeing that causation, seeing the connection between what someone's doing now and all the causation that went before it, that's empathy. It's a little like reverse engineering. You're trying to unlock the DRM that's stopping them from getting what they need, which is kind of a cool hack, actually. And we need to exercise a disciplined empathy. It's an empathy that includes qualitative thinking, like interviews and watching people use stuff to see where the snags are, and quantitative thinking, like A/B testing and heat maps. But the tech industry is pretty crappy at empathy. And I'm speaking from my own experience here. Okay, I know library tech is its own field, but in my experience of our industry, we just dropped the ball on empathy and hospitality a lot. And one reason is that our industry systematically undervalues the jobs and roles that require empathy and has deeply gendered associations. With hospitality and empathy, they're not seen as masculine traits. And this isn't just a women versus men thing, it affects everyone. The tech industry values masculinity over femininity, meaning traits like hospitality are devalued. And those who perform or reinforce masculinity, whether they're male or female, are privileged, and everyone, women and men, gets trapped in this cycle of usually unknowingly reinforcing all those things that say hospitality, empathy, and so on, the stuff that gets you demoted down the respect ladder and the pay scale ladder, and naturally, all this stuff gets smushed out of our software, because it's not just not incentivized, it's actually penalized. And when the group making the software isn't very diverse, the cycle just repeats and gets even worse. In general, marginalized people develop more empathy than the dominant group because we have to. We have to be able to see from other people's point of view, including the dominant point of view, as a matter of survival. And this is one reason why diversity in a group, especially group making software, is useful. It includes people with different perspectives and is more likely to have more people with the ability to see from multiple perspectives, including the user's perspectives. And we need to be able to see from many different users' points of view, even when it's uncomfortable or shows us that we have failed. And so a disciplined empathy means that we need to treat customer support, those frontline desk and phone tasks, as a first-class responsibility and a source of important data. These are your bug reports. This is how you know if you aren't being as hospitable as you want to be. I heard some lore yesterday about a library where they log in like a shared document every time they have to tell a patron no. And then they try to fix that. Kind of a somewhat probably easier to use bug reporting mechanism than Bugzilla, I can say that. And this means listening to designers and coders learning to speak each other's languages including designers learning to integrate their work into the development workflow. And this is happening. I recommend Crystal Beasley's blog post, Code Talks and Designers Don't Speak the Language, in which she says that in general, coders right now in the open source world don't know what to expect from user experience designers and don't have good judgment procedures to know whether a proposed design is correct. She says that representing the work of a designer requires a shift in culture, which I think is totally true. And Beasley also says, the solutions to all these problems lie in communication and building a trusted relationship. It's a higher barrier for designers that takes time to overcome. I've found all of my team to be receptive when I've taken the time to explain the principles that guide my decisions. I like that she mentions that. I think in any negotiation, it's good to help people see the principles you're reasoning from and the experiences you've had led you to where you are now. If you don't think empathy is one of your strong suits, you can change that. We all came into this community with some skills and without others. We're here at this conference partly because this is a great opportunity for learning and skill sharing. And you can learn and exercise your empathy skills as well. If you have a sequential learning style where you prefer a structured approach, you could take a course in conflict resolution. If you want something more self-study, you could read novels and blogs written by people with lives very much unlike yours. And at your own institution, watch real users use your library and your library's digital services, including patrons and colleagues. And the good news is we have resources here. As Beth Sadler said, at this intersection of technology and librarianship, we need to not only bring technology skills and values to library services, we need to bring library skills and values to technology services. And I'd say that includes hospitality and access. So let's talk about some of the resources that you have here. University of Michigan's Library Information Technology Group has a user experience department, and Suzanne Chapman there also has a really interesting blog at userslib.com. University of Illinois' library has a usability testing lab. That's 2 workstations in a room set up to conduct usability studies. Matthew Rietzma at Grand Valley State University Libraries has this awesome work notes blog. So you can see, for instance, how the GVSU web team responded to data and anecdotes to make incremental improvements to their site. And I also suggest you read his pieces, The Library with 1,000 Databases and How We Do Usability Testing. Again, all these links are going to be up. If you might be interested in usertesting.com, which is a quick and easy to use site that lets you commission a test. So testers perform tasks and record and narrate on video what they did, and it's cheap. Someone I know commissioned a test for $89 and got results in less than an hour. And so if you just want to start with usability testing, maybe just find some glitches in what you just rolled out, this is an option. There is a consultancy, Influx, by Aaron Schmidt, Amanda Etches, and Nate Hill that focuses on library user experience. They have a newsletter you could look at. Within LIDA, some folks have proposed a usability interest group. It's also something to look into. So you can see that other libraries are doing this. Sometimes we call it UI, sometimes we call it human-computer interaction, sometimes we call it user-centered design or interaction design, and it intersects with product management. And when my colleagues who are product managers see this keynote, they're going to be unhappy with me for some conflations I've made, whatever, I simplified some things, it's fine. But it all goes to what I've been talking about. Several people on the Code4Lib email list in October talked about what a huge difference a dedicated user experience team or person makes. For example, Tom Kramer said, we have been lucky to have a full-time interaction designer within our library IT group for about 6 years. That makes a world of difference in the quality of our products. So we have some resources that I've just mentioned, and I know I missed a lot of people and guides and groups who can help out. So I believe someone at Coral, I think, is starting right now an email thread on the Code4Lib email list to share usability resources. And if there's nothing at your institution right now, if you don't have what you need, then let's talk this week about how to hack your institution to get it for you. You know, this week here in Raleigh, and on the list, let's join forces on that. I want to thank all the people who have already talked about this with me and helped me work out the ideas in this talk. Coral Sheldon-Hess, Mel Chua, Andromeda Yelton, Beth Sadler, Emma Moles, Leonard Richardson, Jared Zimmerman, and Sky Crozer. And I want to thank all of you for the work you're going to do, hacking yourselves and your institutions to serve users better. Now, better user experience is the best force multiplier that we have at our command. So it is vital that we make it a first-class priority throughout the development process. And with disciplined empathy, we can do that here at the intersection of libraries and tech. We can figure out how to scale hospitality. Doesn't that sound cool? Fix the new last mile problem and actually achieve the social justice goals that so many of us got into this for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really excellent. All right, so we have a little extra time, so we're going to head out for a break right now. We're going to reconvene at 10:20, and hopefully the wireless will be better.
Okay, well, we shouldn't be getting audio. But I can only look at this quickly because I've got 500 pages to do. So, what happened to the podium? I don't know. I think the idea got changed when they... Okay, well, we need that back. We'll be right back. That's the first two. That's as far as I got. I'm just basically abstracting the abstract there.
I don't need that
Good. You can read that. That's really impressive.
Yeah,
microphone on this thing. And, I don't know. It's plugged in up there, so I haven't had time to. I didn't have any time to deal with it, but it's plugged into the computer. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Just knock him out of the way. Where's the tape? We lost the tape? Yeah, because I'm going to try to tape over the microphone because I have no idea any other way to turn it on. No, see, we were literally
How'd it go?
not well, but with the internet working, it'll probably help a lot. We've got, I think we've got most of it straightened out now. Sort of got really knocked for a loop this morning because of the internet.
Yeah. Did you get a recording of it?
Yeah, I have a recording here. I have no idea what the audio is like on it. I've got recorded some of it. Some of it's streamed. The audio is weird. I'm trying to get because I can't figure out how to get the microphone off on this thing, so we're going to try to tape over it.
Okay.
So, Madhouse, Rosie is going to MC because
Yeah, you got it.
I have my hands full.
Yeah,
and she's good at it. So,
Okay. Excellent.
take it through that. What is that? Okay. What is this that I'm looking at?
That is the screen. So that is that. I mean, that's
What is, not what should be, what is, what am I? That's a computer up there. Is that
Yeah.
on the screen there? Where is that coming from? Who is he? Right here.
I got Anna. Okay, that's
These are the ones that these are the ones that have the thing software. Hopefully this will stop this going to sleep.
those people who are in the back just camping out. So we have some chairs. All right? Keep your hands up, guys, because people gotta make their ways. Okay? Cool. So I think that's it for now. This is a walk-on roll for me, so you'll have to excuse me for being unprepared. Our first presenter is NG Morrissey, and I'm going to use the Anglo-Saxon version of her library because I probably will screw it up. She's from the New Library of Alexandria, and she'll be presenting a book, a web browser, and a tablet, how Bibliotheca Alexandrine, see, that's what I did. Book viewer framework makes it possible. And you have you have to install a new plugin with the browser to read and view the PDF version. And finally, the personalization and the annotation feature. The PDF allows you to comment, underline, and I think highlight as well. But this is offline. What about being online, sharing with the others? We are trying to share our knowledge with other people around the world. So here comes our book viewer framework. As you can see, it is divided into two main parts, the client side and the server side. The client side is mainly responsible for displaying the book to the user. It allows several features as we're going to see. You can create sticky notes, highlight, and underline. After creating your annotation, it is saved within your personal space after authenticating with the browser, authenticating with the website. Another feature that the viewer allows is to view a thumbnail, and this thumbnail viewing allows you to add certain pages that are out of copyright, because concerning with the copyright issue. So here you are allowed only to select books or to view pages within the book and select them to be added to your basket. Once added, you can create your own version from the PDF, share it with your friends, and even download on your personal computer if it is out of copyright. As we have said before, the metadata and the concept of encapsulation is very important for us. So within the book viewer, you can see all the metadata associated with the displayed book. Another concern is with the searching. If you, for example, you search for the natural keyword, you can get the search highlights from the results and the snippets for each result. Link it to the page on the webbook site. And later on, you can click on any search results and view the upon commodity hardware. We just need a cost-efficiency hardware and something that can be scalable after or later on. The storage layer is mainly responsible for streaming the original images and text to the content serving layer. The content serving layer contains two important parts, the image processor and the content processor. The content serving layer plays the role for converting the images from the raw nature of the image into the clients and passing the coordinates, the word coordinates and text of the content to the client to be displayed. The load balancer is responsible for delegating the requests to the least used nodes within the content serving layer. Moving down to the search engine, it is mainly responsible for carrying on all the search queries across the content of the book and returning the search result. Currently, we are using Solar 4.1, but actually, as we will see later, that the framework or the architecture of the book viewer allows you to use whatever engine you would like. Here, you can use a database, an XML file. The personalization engine is responsible for saving all the annotation created by the user within the book viewer. The metadata engine prepares all the technical and bibliographic records for the book. The copyright engine is responsible for mastering the communication between the clients and the content. It is responsible for checking whether the book that is being displayed right now is in copyright or out of copyright, the embargo of the book, time, the location, and the action. Actually, you can specify in an XML format the time that you would like to display certain pages within the book, who has the right to do what, can download, can save, and the location. For example, within the library, the books can be displayed 100% as long as you are in the context of the library. Once you are out of the context of the library, you are allowed only for the in-copyright books to display 5% of the book. So the copyright is responsible for monitoring all these actions and specifying what to do, when, and where. All these components are configurable, which means that if you don't have the OCR of the book, you can only just shut down the search engine. You can shut down the only. If you don't have an authentication on your book site or your website, turn off the personalization, or if you'd like to make it available regardless of this user can authenticate yes or not, you can still configure this within a simple XML file configuration. Currently, we we are working on a version for the mobile phone and the tablet. We'd like to include other media types such as manuscripts and images. And we are trying to enhance or still investigating in the storage layer to make it and ensure it is scalable and performing well. I think that's all, and I may be very fast, but I'd like to hear your questions more than that I can explain to you what the book viewer is. This is the URL of the dart.websockets.org. This is a book site for the viewer. It currently displays about 250,000 books online. You may face a problem with the location because we are out of the region. So it saves every word and the coordinate of it on the page, so that when I get the searching results, I can hit the searching results on the page and highlight the searching results. That's your question?
No, I was just wondering because of you mentioned morphology.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you're using special.
Okay, we are using a version from the Aramorph library, but we enhanced the Aramorph to the Aramorph itself is very simple in the way that it doesn't for irregular Arabic words. I think this is the same for the Latin irregular verbs and plural. For the Arabic words, you have different special handling for every word. So the Aramorph library can handle certain words or certain special cases in Arabic. But in the library, we enhanced this Aramorph library version and changed the dictionary of the Arabic so that we can search for even irregular words, verbs, and any other derivative. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bobby Fox from Harvard. I'm very interested in the annotation thing. First of all, are you working with the Open Annotations Group with the W3C effort, or
no, unfortunately not. But we are looking for working with the Annotate project. Yeah.
Okay. The other question I have is I'm fascinated by someone being able to be in the library context and then be out of the library context. Do they get to keep their annotations? Can they download them or something when they're out of the library? You know.
Okay.
Like I'm in the library, I make my annotations, I go home, I'm not in the library anymore, can I get my annotations?
Yes, definitely you can get it because all this saved on the website of the book viewer.
So our next presenter is Bohyun Kim, who is formerly from Florida International University and now at University of Maryland, Baltimore, in the Health Sciences and Human Services Library. I personally, she knows this, think that was a poor decision. She should have stayed in Florida with this winter. She'll be presenting on quick and easy data visualization,
Google Visualization API, and Google Charts Library.
Is it working? This one, sorry. All right, hi everyone. My name is Bohyun Kim, and I'm Associate Director for Library Applications and Knowledge Systems at University of Maryland, Baltimore, Health Sciences and Human Services Library. And I would like to talk to you today about quick and easy with the Google Visualization API and Google Chart Library. So I have a gajillion number of slides, so I'm going to be really fast. But I scheduled a tweet with the link to my slides so you can take a look at it. So here we go. So we see a lot of spreadsheets in a library, right? And they tend to live in different units inside the library. And they tend to include a very similar set of information, slightly different. So you have newspaper holdings, textbook lists, that kind of stuff. And one lives in Circ unit. The other one is in acquisitions department, reference, etc. Right? Librarians and library staff really love spreadsheets. But spreadsheets in databases. So different people update them separately, and it's not very efficient, but we still keep them all because we love them. We're librarians, so we keep track of things. So obvious solution for this problem is to create a web application with a database at the back end. But it's not a solution that is available or convenient or efficient. You might not have a programmer on your staff, or even if you have one, she or he might have other projects that are more important than consolidating spreadsheets in a library. But what if spreadsheets were almost like a database? And you can do that with Google Spreadsheet. So you can use Google Spreadsheet as a data source, and you can use Google Visualization API query language in order to query data. And you can use Google Chart libraries in order to display the query result on the web. So let's see how we can do that. We can take a look at Google Visualization API query language first, and it allows you to perform various data manipulations with the query to the data source, such as Google Spreadsheet, Google Fusion Table, or even your own custom database in-house. And it's very similar to SQL, so if you work with SQL on a regular basis, this will really get you up to speed quite quick. And it has a very good documentation online, so it's quite easy to get a handle on it. So this is an example Google Spreadsheet. Oh, and you can see that this is a document that has multiple sheets, right? So I'm showing you actually number 3, third sheet in this document. So there are a couple of things that you need to remember if you want to query Google Spreadsheet. You need to know the URL so that you can get the identifier of that particular spreadsheet that you want to query. And you will need to tweak the URL a little bit in order to get the query result as a standalone HTML page. And you can also take a look at the raw data response from Google Visualization API. So this shows the data response, and you can see that it's pretty much a JSON string. So if you clean it up, it looks a little more legible. So it has columns and rows and some values. So there are 2 ways to display the result after you query the Google Spreadsheet. So the first way is just play with the URL to get the result as a standalone web page. So that's really quick, and you don't need to do anything other than creating a URL, but it doesn't give you that much flexibility. If you want a little more flexibility, and this is another query result that I am pulling out. So this is the result of all the articles that was written by an author whose name is Godmar. And you can do other neat things using aggregate functions like count, and you can use expressions like group by. So the URL looks kind of messy, but it does the job. So this one is showing you how many articles this particular author published in what journal per year. So that's not that useless information. Actually, some people in your library might find this is quite useful, and since it's a URL, you can hard code it in advance, and then the result will be displayed dynamically as you update the spreadsheet. So there are some other query options if you would like to take a look at those. So order by, limit, offset, date difference function is kind of useful, so there's a link to that. So here are some more examples using pivot to display library budget, which is fake. So the sum of library budgets by year. By pivoting, you can do it the other way, by group by, sum, etc. So you can do neat things to impress your library colleagues. So that was one way to do it. And then another way that is a little more flexible is you use the JavaScript. So in order to do that, what you do is you load a bunch of script, and then you create a query object. You plug in your data source URL, and then you invoke setQuery method onto this query object, and then you send it to the function to hand over. So we'll take a look at some of that. So it looks like the same as what I showed you before, but that's because I was dropping it into a blank page. But if you had like LibGuide or something, you can drop that into it so that you can display wherever you want. So some parameters, I already mentioned the GID, but there's also range parameters. So if you want to query just a range of a specific sheet, you can do so. So you don't have to query the entire sheet. You can also use a headers parameter in order to specify how many rows are headers. So if you have a lot of text in your spreadsheet, this is important because Google will have trouble finding how many rows are headers. So let's visualize Google spreadsheet data using Google Chart libraries. So you load some Google Chart libraries, and you list the data to be charted, and you select the options to customize your chart, and then you create a chart object with an ID that you choose, which is usually the div ID inside the HTML body tag. So you visualize it as a table or any other type of visual chart, depending on what you prefer. So there are 3 techniques that you can use, depending on what you like. So you can use a draw method, you can use a chart wrapper, or you can use a draw chart. And the first one is the longest one to use, but it's the most flexible one. And then the second one is a little easier, and the third one is really, really short. So I will show you that. So chart draw, you load the Google JavaScript API, and then you load the Google Visualization API chart library. And this one actually requires you to know which package of Google Chart library you need for the chart type that you select. So if you want area chart or line chart, I think that's a core package. So you have to select that. So you need to look that up if you want to use this method. So it's a little verbose, and you explicitly load all required chart libraries, and you have to also deal with the data table and all that stuff, but the result is that you have more control over the whole process. So you load the Google JavaScript API script in the first line, and then you say, okay, so I'm gonna just draw a table. So in this case, I'm gonna just need table package, so I load that. And then when these are loaded, I'm going to call the function draw visualization. And inside the function, you see this messy URL. So I'm creating the query object. And then the URL actually includes my query. So it's like not nice, but you can do it if you want to. And so it's asking for the same thing that you have seen before, the same query. And then I say, okay, so hand it over to this other function. And then if everything checks out, it's going to get the data table out of the call. And the data table is what Google Chart Library understands. So you want to get the data table out of it. And once you have that, you just send it over to that table object, which is the chart object, and then you just throw it. So that's basically what it is. So once you get that, and you can see that in the body tag, the div ID is visualization, and that's what I have usually here, right? So in the draw method where the arrow is. So that's the result. Now you can make it neater. So here I'm doing the same thing, but select the query, create a query object first, and then I use the setQuery method, so I separate the query part so it looks nicer, right? So you can do that. You can create multiple charts in one web page. So it's really nice to do it that way because you can separate IDs, and then you can drop wherever you want that chart that you draw. So here I am using the same data source, but drawing one area chart and one table. And the area chart requires a core chart packages, so that's why I'm loading it up there. So once I do that, it looks like this. And yeah, this is the same draw function that I'm using, so method. So that's the same thing. And the chart wrapper is the second technique, and it's a little shorter, but it only propagates the select ready error event. So it's a little limited, but it might just work as well for your purpose. So if you want to use it, can be complicated, so I selected a very simple example. So this database looks like a crap, but it's a very good example. So it has 2 columns, weekly task and percentage. So you have that. So simple Google data table looks like this. I showed you before, but just as a refresher, it's a JSON string. You have a Google spreadsheet. The data table of that spreadsheet looks like this. And the JSON feed from Google spreadsheet also looks like this. So this is my MySQL database table, and it has like 4 rows. So I want this out of this. So if I can get that, I'm good to go. So this is what I'm doing. So I'm connecting to my MySQL database, and then I'm creating like associative arrays, and I'm just looping it through. So I get that. At the end, I get the table array, and then I'm encoding it into JSON, and I'm all good. So once I get that, I just plug it right into the data table method so that I get the data table translated from the JSON, which is like nice, and then you do the rest of it. So the result is my weekly plan, but now you know that the source was not the spreadsheet, but your own custom database. So if you have in-house databases that keep a lot of statistics, this is another way to do it. And the last thing that I want to cover is controls and dashboards. So one of the reasons why you want to play with this JavaScript is because you can give controls to your users so that the result of the data in your chart can dynamically change. So here you're looking at a pie chart with the control. So you can draw a dashboard. So dashboard means a package of the control and the chart. You bind them together. It's called dashboard. So you create a dashboard object and then create a control wrapper and then chart wrapper and then bind them together and then you draw it. So that's the gist of it. So I have another example which actually hard code the data inside as an array. And you can look at it later. It's very simple. Control wrapper, chart wrapper, bind it, draw the dashboard. Here we go. And you can use remote data source such as Google Spreadsheet that I mentioned. So before the example was hard-coded as an array, this one is actually plugging in the Google Spreadsheet that I showed you. So now it's getting the query from the Google Spreadsheet, and then the rest is the same. And I'm binding, oops, did I get that? I'm binding two controls in this case, so you can change the age range, and then you can also select the gender, so female, male, both, and then depending on what you choose, the representation of the data on the right-hand side, you can see that it changed, but it comes from the data source. So this is all static. It doesn't affect the data source itself. It just changes the display. So that's what I have so far, and you can take a look at more detailed controls and other neat things in Google Code Playground. The thing that I didn't mention is an animation effect, so you can have an animation effect, which is nice when you make the transition of the data. That's another thing that you can do. And there's a lot of public data out there in Google Public Data Explorer, so you can get some inspiration from that. So that having been said, I'm all done. My slides are on the website, and my code is in GitHub. So if you have any questions, I will have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
Hi, Mike from Paul Smith College. Do you have any favorite examples that you're using this for in your libraries?
No, actually, when I did this, it was like a proof of concept, and then I wanted to bring it to my library director to actually do this because we keep a lot of statistics in Excel spreadsheet. Just so I wanted to actually move it to Google Spreadsheet, and then I wanted to actually, my idea was that I was going to have a web page in the library website that had like library statistics, and I was going to show it every year in a way. So I had a really nice idea, but I got a new job offer, so I didn't actually have a chance to implement it. But at the new workplace, I would like to do so. So sorry about that, but maybe next year. Yes. Anyone else? Good. All right.
So next up, we have Jason Ronallo, who's going to either do WebSockets for real-time and interactive interfaces, or if the internet fails, an interpretive dance.
Okay, so it's probably a really bad idea, especially under the circumstances, but I was going to have you all try to go to a particular page right now on the internet. My presentation is all about connectivity, so that seemed kind of appropriate. But maybe the people at home could follow along, or if you're tethered with your phone, it might work. Although I haven't tried that. But you could go to go.ncsu.edu/WebSocket, and yeah, we would do audience participation, and it looks like so far no one has. Oh, one! Yay! Oh, four! Yay! Okay.
Can you put the URL?
Yeah, it's up there right now. Oh, how do I switch to my presentation when it's in Chrome?
Just exit out of PowerPoint.
Exit out of PowerPoint. Okay. So let's try to play with some WebSockets right now. I was going to potentially. Is this up yet? No. Oh.
But your device is ready to use, which is cheering.
You just want this page on there, right?
Yeah, I just want that page.
Sorry, I got you right here.
Okay. It ought to work on mobile devices as well. Okay, so let's try playing with some WebSockets. Yeah, I was going to title my presentation, or Will the Wireless Fail Us Now? So every presentation about WebSockets has to have a gratuitous chat application as part of it. So I thought I'd add that at the beginning just to see if it would work. And yeah, see, so people are chatting with me and they want beer and saying, hi. Cool. No, this is good.
No,
it's not. I'm missing all my chat messages now. with me not being able to get to IRC, this is one way for me to communicate with people. Okay. So we got some messages coming in. That's great. So now that that's out of the way, what just happened, or should have happened? Well, when I change the slides, it sends a message into this big black cloud, which then broadcasts messages to the audience. And then in that chat application, you all sent messages into this big black cloud, and it sent a message here, and it put it up on the screen. So what's in that big black cloud? It's a WebSocket server, in this case, Node and Socket.io. So what is WebSockets? Well, to explain that, we really got to talk about what problem it's trying to solve. And so we need to look at HTTP, which is the client is always making a request, and the server is giving a response. And it's always the client that has to start the communication off. And so that doesn't really work very well for real-time applications or chat applications. And so what are some of the solutions that have come along to try to work around this? Well, there's polling, where the client makes a request, and if there's no new data, it sends back there's no new data, and then the client makes another request until there's some new data. But there's always this polling interval that causes some delay. So people came up with long polling or hang and get, where there's a request from the client, and then the server hangs on to that request for as long as it can, and when there's a new event or something new has happened, it sends new data back. And then state management, other services that XHR and HTTP in the browser provide you, that you then begin to have to think about how you're going to do those same things in WebSockets. So you want to use the right tool for the job. So what are WebSockets good for? Things like collaborative editing, HTML5 games, anything that you want to be real-time or feel very responsive. So my use cases are real-time display of activity and remote controls. So we have this digital collections, which has a lot of these visual material in it. And when Google Analytics Real-Time came out, it was like so addictive watching visitors come in. And I'd be like, oh, 10 people are looking at this resource, what is it? And then I have to like copy the URL or do a search in the site to try to get there, and that was so tedious. And so I was like, I can solve this problem. I can be able to see my digital collections right now as people are viewing them. So my first go at this was to do some tracking so that I could show what was popular this week or popular today on the site. But that was only updated hourly, so that didn't really feel very complete. And it's vanity metrics. No, I really think that there's a place for vanity metrics for us, that we can do things that show our value to people in a way that makes sense, that you're not going to necessarily make business decisions about how your website works or how you might want to change it, but it helps to tell the story of the value of what you do. And so here's what it looks like as people are interacting with the site. Those results come in, and you can see the freshness of it, whether it's come in just now or a minute ago. If someone views the same image that's already on the page, it gets a little badge. So finally, I can see what people are viewing at that moment. And this is how I can also tell that it's basketball season, because this is what the page will look like. And so what does this look like? Well, site visitors come and they hit Rails, which sends a message off to Socket.io, to Node, which then broadcasts it to all the folks that are on that page that are real-time viewers. So, okay, finally, let me show you some code. This is a really naive implementation, just using an after filter, but you filter out all the robots, and then you just make a post request sending the ID of the image that's currently being viewed to the WebSockets server. And then on WebSockets server, you just have a route for a post request listening on a particular room. And so this was built very generic, so I can use the same WebSockets server for multiple applications. And so we can do a trick where we add the environment on, whether it's staging or production, to the room name, and I can use the same WebSockets server for multiple applications. And then when we get a new message, we just emit it to everyone that's listening in that room. And then the client is really easy. We just make a connection. We can do an initial subscribe message that we send to connect to the room that we're interested in. And then on any update, we just listen to an update just like we would with any other evented programming in the browser, and then we can do something with it, in this case, display some content on the page. I also want to show an example of raw WebSockets on the client. It's super simple to create a WebSocket. You could do this if you had an internet connection. You could open up your console right now and enter this code in, and it would you would send a message, and you would receive the message that you sent right back to you. So the API for WebSockets is really simple, but for the most part, and this is all work that I didn't do. But I took what was out there, they open sourced it, and I was able to change it to fit the wall there. So how's it work? Well, Wikipedia uses IRC to broadcast changes for each language, and then Wikimon listens to these IRC channels and broadcasts that data out over WebSockets, and then Listen to Wikipedia listens to Wikimon for those changes and creates the visualization and ideation from the data. So there really wasn't all that much I needed to do just to adapt it to the big wall. But one of the features that I really liked about Listen to Wikipedia is you can turn off and on these different languages, which when you turn off and on a language, it's really connecting or disconnecting from a WebSocket connection. And I wanted users to still be able to switch these different languages off and on. So I started thinking about remote controls, not complicated remote controls like these, but simple ones like this that were still engaging and kept people clicking and interacting with the content. So as you enter Hunt Library, you'll sometimes see Listen to Wikipedia there, and there's this big sign to interact with it, and there's a URL, and you can also take your device out, and you can scan the QR code, and you can go to the page and start interacting with it. And for those of you who are going to be QR code haters, 80% of the interactions in that space are with QR code. This was a test. We just didn't know what would work. So, but we have this token-based authentication so that someone in Australia can't necessarily be changing the content that's on the wall in Hunt Library in North Carolina. But some future possibilities for how we could do this would be using the geolocation API, using Bluetooth low energy, or near field communication might be ways to smooth out how people actually kick off their interaction with the space. And so if you see on the right side will be the remote control, and the idea is that you want the interaction to be as quick as possible, where someone checks a box and you see the change reflected on the wall as quickly as possible. And so, yeah, we want really low latency, like pressing a button on the wall itself, as close as we can get to that type of experience. And the other problem that we have is, well, if you're bringing your own remote control into the space, well, multiple people can have remote controls, and you know how that would be in your house, right? So we need to try to keep things in sync between these different clients, and we're using WebSockets for that as well, so that anytime it changes in one client, the same thing is going to be reflected in another. But beyond that, we wanted people to be able to see the content that was actually being displayed on the wall at the time. And so you can have a stream of, you can see the stream of the languages that are currently being displayed on the wall on your mobile device to get some idea, at least, of what it's like to design for these big spaces. So when you're on the Hunt tour, hopefully I'll be around one or the other of those walls to play with them with you and talk about them. So there's some credits, links, and yeah, please contact me if you're interested in any of this stuff, and this is your moment of Zen. And if I have time for questions, if anyone has questions, I suppose I'll take questions from people who stand up, as well as people if they have them online. Hi, okay. Not a question. Thanks, okay. Not a question. Dance. Okay. Pie, that would be good. I would like pie too. Are you a trained dancer? No. When is the dance? Maybe later. Yes.
Good question via the mic?
Yes, please do.
All right. All right, cool. Well, first off, thank you for using Listen to Wikipedia. I just sent a note to Stephen Laporte, one of the people who developed it, who is a hacker/lawyer at the foundation. Like his day job, he's a lawyer. He's one of our attorneys. But he's also been a Google Summer of Code student, and he hacks on the side, and he's pretty great. And so he's just going to be pleased as punch that this is getting used in such a way.
Well, I actually contacted them to ask that they put a license on their code so that I could fork it to be able to change it to make it work for this, and that was very nice. And we have some promotional materials that we're hoping, like a video that we're hoping to get out there and share with them as well, because I promised them that I would show them what it looked like on this big wall.
All right, cool. I basically came up here just to double check, like, do you need anything? You good?
No, I think I'm good.
You're good? All right,
Is
great.
it lunchtime yet? Almost. I think there's some more presentations, and I'll just
All right.
leave you with that. Unless there's any other questions from the audience. Were there any serious ones on the efficiency problems with big images in Chrome? Well, the resolution on, say, that visualization wall isn't really all that high, so no, there really aren't problems with the, large images. Yeah. Could you describe how testing worked more? Yeah, so I tested locally, and then every couple weeks I would go to Hunt Library and we would try it out and see what was wrong, and then we would go back and we would work on it some more and try again. We're trying to smooth out that process of what it looks like. Part of the exercise here is what kind of tools can we begin to put together to make it easier to design for these spaces. Race condition issues between devices? I have time. Okay. Thank you.
like not showing the.
Refuses.
I can't. Oh, exit. Yeah. F11. Thank you.
I'm just messed up.
I'm more worried. Hold on.
Yeah,
I'm worried about this. It's going to restart in an hour.
I got 1 hour.
You're using PowerPoint?
No, I'm trying to get rid of that.
We'll see if we can get rid of that.
Well, we have an hour and 18.
We'll restart it at lunch.
Just sort of throw it out of the way.
Yeah. Is that cool?
If it's in
it should be fine
view,
if it's out of the way.
How are you
just although they're not very sparkly because I'm just running it off of PDF just to make it easy on everyone. Are we getting some feedback?
And if you can put the mic closer.
Is that better? Okay. And I'm not squealing anymore? Okay. Yeah, so they're not sparkly, but they are rainbows. So you can just like imagine them sparkling, which is probably better than what it does in the animated GIF anyway. So let's talk about what events and custom variables are. We all good?
Yeah. Keep
Okay.
going.
Sorry, I'm too tall. Okay, so out of the box, analytics gives you all kinds of general data, and you've probably all seen this. I'm sure there's like a huge range of experience in this room, from people who have like just barely looked at analytics, or maybe not for a few years, all the way up to code. And every day is their way they're divided these days is to kind of break it into 3 buckets. Audience acquisition behavior, sort of the who, the how, and the what. But there actually is room baked right in to make customizations, and you may not have even really noticed it or thought about it before. So this is sort of an audience overview. Don't worry too much, you can't see the smaller type. By this custom variables talk, but okay. So what the variables are in universal analytics, they're actually calling them custom dimensions. So you may see both of those things in the documentation. Dimensions, I think, is a little better because this is really data about who's doing this stuff on your site. Conceptually, it's like a custom segment if you're used to that. Some of the classic examples of variables or dimensions is like, say you want to know like who in your audience is logged in and who's not logged in and what they're doing when they're in one of those states. You may want to know like who's got something in their shopping cart, if that's like a feature, kind of a feature you're using, who's got a site badge, just different little bits, variables, dimensions, whatever you want to call them, about the who stuff. Events are more stuff that's happening on your site, just kind of beyond the basic page views, which is out of the box analytics. And some of the classic examples of events are things like if you want to track downloads, you do it through events, clicks of facets, playing videos, anything that's like a thing that happens. So a little more about those. And which one you want to use really just depends on what you want to know. Do you want to know more about the people using your site, or do you want to know more about the stuff that happens? So once you answer that question, you can decide which of these you want to implement. Okay, the reports look like any other Google Analytics report. We just have, simple counts of events. This is the top events report, signified by another sparkly rainbow of custom data. So anytime you see that, that's sparkly custom data. So let's talk about some examples. First one I'll talk about, we use Content DM at the State Library for our digital collections. Whether or not you're using Content DM doesn't really matter, but this should give you an idea of how it might look in whatever CMS you're using, if you're using one. This is a CMS example to start off with. They actually offer, I think we probably have some Content DM folks, OCLC folks in the room, and I'm going to say thumbs up. You did a great job with the events implementation on this. If you can enable analytics just in your website configuration tool. Just click a box, put in your analytics ID, and you're off and running. And more than just tracking your normal analytics code and your normal analytics data without ever touching code, a whole bunch of events are getting tracked in there too. This is sort of what the report looks like. They track a whole bunch of stuff that's really relevant for Content DM in that context, and you get it all for free. You don't have to do anything except check that box. You get tracking of compound objects, searches, downloads, all sorts of stuff that was actually really cool for us to see when we turned it on. And you can drill down into these. These are like a high-level category of event. So if you drill down into facets, for example, you can see whether people toggle the facet or click on it. You can drill further down into the facets to see which facet they toggled or they clicked. So all this stuff is built right in. They baked it in. So that was while you're visiting us. Check it out. We wanted to record again the source, how often somebody viewed anything from one of our licensed partners. We're tracking that customized. So that was, again, a way to report back to our stakeholders how much of their data is getting used. Very helpful. So when you implement this stuff, one way your CMS may do it for you. You can just, sometimes if you're not a person who touches code, you may not have to touch code. You just get it going in your CMS. It may be baked in. It may be something you can add on with like a plugin or a module or some kind of gizmo. But of course, there is Google Analytics code, and a lot of us touch that. And even if you're not usually a code person, it's super easy to get it going as far as coding goes. So let's talk about where it fits in to the analytics snippet and how you decide on labeling and some other things. So here is an incredibly small font, which you don't have to read. The two snippets, sort of the classic analytics snippet that a lot of us have seen, and the universal one, if you haven't seen that before. When you add some event code, and I'm just going to sort of focus on events. Variables are kind of similar conceptually, so I'll just focus on one of them. All you have to do is add another line along with some triggering code. I'll get to that in a minute. But you add one other line of code, and all you have to do is basically just define how you're going to label that event in your report. And then there's a few other optional arguments to throw in there in case you want to record some specific other values or other things. And the documentation is actually really good. It changes all the time in Google Analytics, but it's out there, and it's pretty easy to follow. But I'll talk about it a little bit. The biggest consideration, again, is just labeling these blasted things. The only two arguments that are actually required are the category and the action, and all the other ones are optional just depending on what you need. So the easiest way you could do it is just track a category and an action. So an example could be the category is videos, and the action is to play the video. And so you could record it that way. You could slap a label on there if you wanted some more granular data. So let's say you're playing amazing cat video. You can record all those pieces. And you can add more fields if you need more data, more granularity. And the way this sort of breaks down is that categories, actions, labels are just kind of hierarchical. That's how they'll appear in your analytics reports. So it may turn out to look like one category would be videos, one would be polls, and different actions and different labels in the hierarchy. And more broadly, those categories are sort of like the broadest bin, and then actions are things that happen in that bin, and labels are specific details about what happened. Okay, so some of the considerations you need to worry about is, first of all, you do usually need some extra JavaScript. It's not as simple as cut and paste this track event code, because you need something to trigger it, right? If somebody's hitting a play button, this needs to fire when they hit that play button, not 100 times when they hit the page, or like as soon as on page load. So you need a little extra JavaScript wrapper to know when to fire off those events. By Google, or UTM is a good way to filter, so you get both you can see both that classic and the new Universal Analytics events firing off. Or if you got other stuff to do, just wait a day, come back, see if the event's recorded overnight. Lots of gotchas when you actually do these things. One thing, the biggest gotcha almost every time when your events just aren't working and can't figure out why, is timing is everything, and lots of different ways that timing can screw you up. Your event can't fire if it's firing off before you've given your page time to load the analytics library. You can't record like any value on the page if the value isn't loaded yet. So I got hung up a lot of times with those metadata fields, waiting for them to load. They load a little bit slower than other elements on the page, and I was trying to like hook up values with them before they were really there, and that was a big thing. So you may need to work out your timing in your scripts. Custom variables, another timing thing, have to be set before you do that track page view. Otherwise, you fire off the page view, the variable isn't set yet. And of course, if you're doing any sort of download or like link clicking event, you may need to put in some sort of little JavaScript timeout, so that you can record the event before you like go off to that other page and start downloading stuff. That's usually one of those gotchas. Yes, you have to check Internet Explorer 8. IE8 can be particularly finicky about all of these different timing issues. Sometimes DOMs don't even render the same way, and you're counting on it to render one particular way so you can grab your stuff. You probably all know this, and you all don't want to do it, but you have to do it. Also, just a general analytics thing, if you got multiple domains or subdomains, remember that GA code requires some extra little tinkering. So I got a few minutes left for questions. If you do have questions, definitely drop me a line. That code for if you're interested in recording any metadata stuff and use content DM users up on GitHub. Also, you can study my jacket, which is covered in Google Analytics code. So you can look. So you can look for me wearing this incredibly dorky jacket that fits right in here. If you have any other questions, thanks a lot. Yeah. We have 2 minutes for any questions. What's Charlie's question going to be?
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So I was wondering about custom variables, and if you were doing anything with audience segmentation, because that's always been sort of like a holy grail. I think a lot of times we want to find out who's actually doing the clicking, especially if it's like our staff. So I wanted to know if you had any work with that, played with that.
Well, if they're your staff, I mean, I guess you have to find something that's, is recordable data that sets them apart from somebody else. So I don't know. I mean, the IP wouldn't work because they're probably, how do you distinguish them from like students in the building? I don't know. It could be something like just thinking all on this stage and everybody's looking at me. Maybe something like you know who your staff are and they're logged in and they're doing stuff. Maybe sort of work off of your known accounts, something like that. Anybody? No, not for me. Most of the stuff we do at the State Library is anonymous visitors, so I haven't worked too much with like logged in folks, but that'd be an interesting topic to discuss. So, okay, I'm off the hook. Thank you.
You present discovering your discovery system in real time, and they're now testing using their own laptop.
Yeah, just one question. So this presenter server, we installed it, right? But how do you connect it to us?
Can I prepare?
Yeah.
I think the IP address.
Okay. No, hold on, this won't be the IP address.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we need to get it.
Tonight? Yeah. Oh, look, we have an announcement.
I was going to do this after the presentation, but so a couple announcements for the tour tonight. We're going to wrap up here just before 5 o'clock. Again, I mentioned that the first buses are going to be leaving at 5 o'clock. Please wear your name tags because the library is open to students, and we want to make sure that only us get into the reception, so there's enough beer to go around. There is a board, since we are technically challenged right now, technology challenged right now, there is a whiteboard or a flip chart out by the escalators for lightning talk signups for today, tomorrow, and Thursday. So please see that on your way over to the lunch area. And we will. I have to get. I'll get back to you on breakout sessions after we're housekeeping for after the lunch. And there was one more announcement. Oh, there will be, if you haven't been on Twitter because you don't have a phone handy, there will be people in the ceiling over during lunchtime to try to replace the wireless. So.
And I think somebody asked when the breakout sessions are. They're at, hold on, I can't do math. 2:30? Yeah, 2:30 to 3:20. Then we'll have a break for coffee, and then we'll do lightning talks. If you're doing, what? Thank you, Becky. That is an excellent question. Lightning talks are short, 5-minute talks. If you're going to do one, you have to use our laptop here up on the presenter podium. You can't use your own. And they can be on anything that you want, that's conference related, or maybe not. Who knows? And like Tim said, you can go sign up outside. But now we're going to have Annette and Godmar do their presentation.
Which microphone should we use?
You can use that one. It was just you.
Okay. I am not too tall for this. I realize we are standing between you and lunch, and that it took a few extra minutes to get the laptop set up. And I am a bit of an old-timer going to conferences, so I know exactly what position I've been placed in. So I am Annette Bailey. I'm the Assistant Director for Electronic Resources and Emerging Technology Services at Virginia Tech University Library. And also my husband, full disclosure. So just to start off, because I'm an electronic resource librarian, and I do have to write code, and I do show people how to write code, and I do use code, but I'm going to talk more generally, and he gets to talk the fun stuff. So academic libraries or libraries in general, what are some observations about where we are this year? Well, the majority of the resources that we're using are electronic, which means job security. Physical space is by large being dedicated to student work areas, no matter what kind of facility you have and what your philosophy is. Students need the space on campuses to do their research. Faculty need the space to do their research. And physical space is also being given over to digital displays, which we've already seen some presentations about that. And we are expected, as librarians, to become more and more active partners in the research that's going on our campuses. This could mean managing the data that's produced by the research. This could mean actually doing research with our faculty. So we're expected to participate in all stages of the research that is happening. And this is something that we all know. Libraries are replacing their OPACs with discovery systems. And if you read the Ithaca report that just came out, of views of library directors and deans from 2013, you would notice that some of the data is showing that libraries are starting to reach that threshold where they've decided on some sort of discovery system, and now they're moving forward and away from the OPAC. But there are a number of risks associated with all of these changes. The use of our library collections is becoming largely invisible. While we're seeing an uptick in the number of students coming into our physical space at Virginia Tech, we're not necessarily seeing as many students checking out books. They may be checking out laptops and cameras and projectors and who knows what else that we're checking out these days. But the use of the actual collections is becoming largely invisible. And this was part of the community that you would see in the library. Now students come in, they want to do their research. Search engines are competing, or actually discovery systems are competing with search engines, if you really want to be honest about it, for users, because most of our users are still going out to search engines. And what this means for us is much like the OPAC, for our discovery system, we have to market it. We have to convince people to use our discovery system instead of one of the other search engines that are available. So we're faced with a challenge. How do we expose what our students are doing? That doesn't sound right. How do we make the discovery process and use of resources visible? How do we make certain that we can see the activity of research that is happening more than just a group of people sitting around a table? So can we see what our users are doing? So, we're getting kind of voyeuristic here, but I've still got your attention. I can see that. And you're hungry, I know that too. So as an electronic resource librarian, there's the counter standard. If you're not familiar with the counter standard, it's an ISO standard, and it's wonderful. It standardizes the data that we get in about what our users are doing. But what it tells us is that somebody clicked on something in a journal in a month, in a year, okay? So it's after the fact. It can be hard to process because everybody interprets the standard differently, no matter what they say, and it's really the topic of a different talk. But Summon provides us with a little bit more data, and we're a Summon shop. Provides us analytics data on search terms and clicks, but it's aggregate and it's not real time. It's just not enough. It's still not letting me really see what my users are doing. Google Analytics, which we've talked about quite a bit this morning, can record data, but there's no real-time access. There's no API to get in there and see the real-time data. But what if we could see what our users are doing in real time? And yes, I do care about the P word, while still affording them some privacy. And this is the delicate balance that we all face in our libraries. And what if we could share that information with other members of the community? What if you knew that a user at your institution was using a particular journal article, and that somebody at Virginia Tech had also used that journal article? What could we learn from that? So we came up with a project, and of course we had to come up with a name, and the first name we came up with was Discovering Discovery. I do have other things to do. So we wanted to visualize in real time the items that users discover as they click on results in Summon. Okay, so what we want to visualize is my users are in there and they're actually using Summon. I know they are because I see the data, but I want to know what they're actually clicking on. I want to know what they're using. So it's as if we could see what object the user is plucking off of the shelf. We can't see if they actually use the object. This is much like checking out a book. We don't know what they did with it. Shaming or something, or I don't know. But we're using QR codes so that if this is up on a display in your library and a student is walking by and they're interested in whatever's on that cube, they can snap that QR code with their smartphone because that's what they're using, and they can also go and look at that particular item. But we're bringing in book covers, we're bringing in journal covers from Syndetics. We're having conversations about what to display on this 3D visualization of what our users are doing in real time. Somebody's in VT Summon right now and clicking on these items while I'm standing here keeping you from eating your lunch. That's what's happening right here. Godmar's going to talk a little bit more about the technology, if I ever let him. Okay. And I know you're all jealous because I have internet up here. So this is a word cloud. You know, we've all seen the word clouds. This is word cloud in real time. This is taking subject terms and doing very magical things with them that Godmar will explain. But really showing what is it, you know, what are some representations of what our users are doing research on. Think about K through 12 groups coming through your library and being able to visually show them the process of using a discovery layer instead of Google, a process of using a discovery layer to do research. And what are people, they're interested in children education. I mean, aren't K through 12 groups going to be excited to know that they're being studied? So this is the kind of thing that can really have an impact on your users. We're doing the same thing with title. I'm about to get kicked off the podium.
Just wonder if this is also, we played the last 50.
Yeah, we're also playing the last 50. That's why it's scooting around so much. I'm going to rush through this a little bit. Okay, this is something that we worked up like in the last couple of days because, you know, it's Code4Lib and you always do things to the last minute. But this is showing, on average for Virginia Tech, how many clicks per hour are coming through. You know, what can we learn from that? Maybe I want to know that as the primary contact for someone at my institution. This is my personal favorite one. This is the one I actually asked for, and this is something that Godmar hacked together for me because I'm his wife. As an electronic resource librarian, what I wanted to know was what was the change over time in what disciplines were being used. And I thought a stock ticker would be a really cool way to see that, because I could just scroll across my screen like it's doing right now. And you can see the arrows and you can see the numbers and you start to get a sense of what activity is now in Summon. What is being researched? What disciplines are being accessed right now? It has a timestamp, so I know exactly when this activity is occurring. To me, this is really just, it's a really great way to see what's going on at my institution. Okay, and then these are some charts that I've shown before, I believe at LIDA. But this is showing number of, the year that an item was published that's been clicked on. Okay, and then it's showing, my arrow. What's it doing? Why is it not going? Make it go. And then it's showing, for some reason the arrow is not doing anything. So you're seeing the color variation in the years, and then you're seeing the number of discovered items. And once again, this is looking at the last 50. It's giving me a timestamp up at the top so I know when this activity is occurring. But I can see that my users are using, you know, at 11:57, items ranging from 1984 to 2013. So that might be of interest to me because I want to know what my users are using. Remember, those counter reports only give you so much data. I want to know more about what my users are using, and I don't want to look at a bunch of spreadsheets. I think the presentation earlier about taking a spreadsheet and visualizing it, yeah, we want visualizations just as much as our students and everyone else do. So how would we use this at our library? I've talked a lot about how much I want this, but really we're thinking about, you know, NC State is talking about all the awesome technology that they have. If you have
some of these ideas if you also use a discovery system, and if you're in the same boat that you want to market your discovery system, just know what's going on. So let me briefly walk through the technology. Much of this was already explained in the WebSocket talk that you've seen before. So what we're doing here is, as users interact with the VT summon interface shown here, so user searches, and then a user might click on something. As the user visits the results page, we're sending a little bit of custom JavaScript along, put it into the summon page, and then as the user clicks on some result, then we'll record that click on a server, and after we record it, we then check out what item the user clicked on through the summon API, get the metadata. We save that record away in a database, because summon uses very short-lived IDs, and so we need to actually keep a personal backup copy of that summon record. And then on the other side, there are visualizations, and these visualizations are also driven by the visualization server. So a number of, so these are mostly D3 based, but also some of the other, we're also using some other technologies like Annette showed you. The technical details, so the click recording is, in the current summon, it's relatively simple because summon was so nice to actually hide the ID of the item being clicked on somewhere in the HTML. So we just extract it from there. A new version of that discovery system is coming up, Summon 2.0. We'll have to redo this code. But basically, Summon right now the ID is embedded, and so a little bit of JavaScript code just records it, and we're sending the software URL that you see here, click.gif. I'm explaining these details so you get an idea of what it would take for you to adopt this and how many moving parts are involved. So then on the server, which is logging us, which is using Apache in this case, a special login in Apache where we're excluding the referrer URL so that the search terms are not being logged in this case. And then we have something that processes those logs. This is a chart. We've run this for 1 year to give you an idea of how many clicks there are. So this is a very manageable number, maybe like less than 1 million clicks through the period of 1 year, at least for one library. And during that time period, our users discovered 491,000 unique items. The oscillations you see here are semesters. So then we trace this log, just a simple program that traces this log. Goes to Summon API, retrieves those records, stores them in a database. Give you some intuition of what data we have available to us to visualize. So this is a summon record in JSON format. And these are some of the fields that we can draw from, pages and so on. Our current analysis goes for some low-hanging fruits. We tabulate frequency of disciplines, publication year, content type, source type, over some time periods, last minute, 5 minutes, hour, but also over some event counts, like last 50 clicks, last 200 clicks. We find it somewhat challenging to find a good time period to make the visualization then engaging. This is what the tabulation would look like on the wire. We're using Google Charts, like an earlier talk did. We like it, would allow you to deploy this into the cloud, customize it, set it up, and potentially also create a federation of libraries using this so we can get some aggregate information, like an article, a journal article that is really hot at a given point in time. We would see this across different libraries, so some kind of altmetrics. Last thing, listen. So we should make it maybe obligatory in every Code4Lib talk to include listen to something. And so the...
and not just us.
Yeah, okay. So this is our version of listen to Wikipedia. I don't know if audio plays or not. But essentially, so when we visited North Carolina, Jason showed us this listening to Wikipedia, and so we adapted this to listen to sound. There's no sound. I don't know why I have it turned on. And here, basically, what you see is the recent hits in Summon in this case. This is designed for 1920 by 1080, we also map the sounds to something. So like the bell sound is if someone discovers a journal article, and the plug sound is if it comes from the catalog. And if somebody discovers a web resource like PubMed, then we play the
I think we're done.
Okay, thank you very much.